More of the folks that registered will be joining us, but so we'll just get started here so that we don't run out of time. Greetings, everyone. I'm Deb Bauer, Community Engagement and Volunteer Coordinator here at Hope House. Welcome to Keeping Kids and Teens Safe Online. This webinar is part of our awareness programming this year in recognition of Sexual Abuse Awareness Month and Child Abuse Prevention Month. We're all glad you found time to join us for this really important webinar presented by two very dedicated Hope House staff members. If you would please, those of you who are signed in, if you'd please post your name and organization or city in the chat, we'd love to know who everyone is who is in attendance. A little about Hope House. The mission of Hope House is to prevent abuse and provide support to victims of all types of domestic and sexual violence. We provide services in Sauk, Columbia, Juneau, Marquette, and Adams counties, including a 24/7 helpline, supportive counseling, support groups, advocacy, children's programming, community education, and an emergency shelter. And I welcome you to visit our website to sign up for our monthly e-bulletin to keep up on everything we're doing. Now I'd like to introduce our staff presenters. Jess Caney is the Community Education Program Manager here at Hope House. She presents to youth and adults on a variety of topics, including on the topic of online safety. Jess Lebrecht is the Sexual Assault Advocate at Hope House. She provides advocacy and support for victims of sexual assault as well as their families. Now, as we get started here, know that this is a safe place. There may be some triggers for some of you in today's content, so please take care of yourself. A couple other things, we are recording this webinar and the link and the handouts will be emailed to all who registered. And we'd also appreciate if you complete the evaluation form, which I'll post as a link in the chat box shortly. Again, welcome, and I hope you find the next 50 or so minutes extremely beneficial and helpful for keeping kids and teens safe online. So I will now hand it off to the Jesses.
All right. Thank you, Deb. So yes, we're going to be talking about protecting kids online, keeping them safe. And we're going to be utilizing this program from NetSmarts. And if you're not familiar, NetSmarts comes from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Their mission is really to help find children, to reduce sexual exploitation, and to prevent future victimization. And as part of this NetSmarts program, it's really a safety program that teaches K through 12 students about how to make safer and more responsible choices when they go online. And then there's a ton of information as well for parents and guardians, for school staff, and for those that work with youth, including some really great tip sheets, some videos, some games for kids, just lots of different resources that you can find on their website. So we really would recommend checking them out if you're not already familiar. When we talk about kids going online, it can be in so many different ways. You might have kids that are using their school computer or tablet, maybe a friend's, or maybe their own or one that is at home. They might be using a cell phone. They might be using a gaming console or handheld gaming devices to access the internet, as well as e-readers. So like a Nook or a Kindle. They might be using all sorts of different devices. And we're going to be talking about, what we can do as adults to try to keep up, because really our kids and teens are so good at finding the newest websites and the newest apps. And realistically, we're not going to be able to keep up with that same kind of level that they are. So at Hope House and in the NetSmarts program, we really just emphasize talking to kids, especially if you're able to while they're still young, and then regularly as they get older, to instill kind of those basic rules of internet safety and really emphasizing your expectations that they use the internet responsibly. So I thought we could just ask too, if you wanted to add in the chat, what are your kids or teens doing online? Or if you work with young people, what do you hear that they're doing in terms of games or virtual worlds, different apps that they're using? if you want to add that to the chat. Yeah, thank you. So watching videos on YouTube, going on Xbox, yep, going live. Yes, Roblox, we hear a lot of that, and watching TikTok videos, using Snapchat, Discord, TikTok again, gaming. Yep, absolutely. Feel free to keep adding if you think of others. I think those are very common. I know too, especially with the pandemic, you know, a lot, even younger kids have been doing things more virtually, including connecting with family and friends, you know, so maybe they're using Messenger Kids or FaceTime, you know, for making those video calls. We know a lot of young people are playing games like Call of Duty, Among Us, you know, that definitely watching a lot of videos on YouTube, going on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, even on Twitter. I still hear about some teens using Twitter. So again, it's a lot to keep up with all these new things. And it seems like as soon as adults kind of get a handle on it, the kids are on to something else. So really the best thing we can do is ask our young people like what they're doing online, what apps they're using, and kind of work through and explore with them, you know, the privacy settings and the reporting functionalities. So yeah, technology can't catch everything. So we really want to emphasize communicating with our young people. So maybe questions just to start the conversation about like, what apps are you using? What games are you playing? Who are you playing with? You know, what are your favorite videos to watch online? Or what kind of pictures do you like to post if you're talking about teens and they're posting things online? Just thought I would check in again too, if you want to share in the chat other questions that you find helpful for kind of starting that conversation with young people. So besides asking them like, oh, what games are you using? What apps, what websites, who are you playing with? If you found any other questions to be helpful for engaging young people in those conversations, feel free to pop that in the chat, because I feel like it's always good to even learn from each other if we have ideas, especially with, you know, as kids get older and get to be teens, you know, maybe it is harder to pull those kind of conversations out from them. So I'll just keep going, but feel free to add anything if you think of it. So again, really trying to discuss with them regularly that about what they're doing online, because that really helps convey to them that you're there. Like, I'm here if something does come up when you're online. I want you to come to me with issues that come up, and I'm not going to you know, like punish you or be mad at you. Like, I want to be that safe person that you can trust, that you can come to if you have problems that come up online. You know, because kids often are afraid, like, I don't want to tell an adult about something that I saw or something that happened online because I'm afraid the adult is going to freak out, overreact, and like take away, you know, my phone or take away internet privileges. So just doing what we can to protect them. We can't protect them from everything online, but trying to teach them about how to make responsible choices when they do come across a problem. So luckily, you know, most kids aren't getting into trouble online, but there are still risks to consider. So these are kind of the top issues that we'll be going through in today's webinar. So thinking about if a young person comes across inappropriate content and how to address that, thinking about their online safety and sort of your expectations of when it's safe to share personal information and when it would not be safe. Also the issue of sexting, like if they're being pressured to send sexual or revealing photos or content online, or they're being sent that information, or there is somebody online that is trying to groom them, maybe they're trying to meet in person, and then cyberbullying issues that may come up. So those are difficult topics, right? Those can be very heavy topics. So we really encourage, as people are able to, like I said, start those conversations young in an age appropriate kind of way. So at Hope House, when we talk to elementary students about internet safety, we're starting with those conversations about being respectful when we go online. So at NetSmarts, they use this term netiquette, having netiquette. They also talk about being a good digital citizen. And they're talking about, what do you do if you come across inappropriate content, or if something pops up and says, you've just won something, or, fill out this information for to be involved in a contest, or if somebody is asking them to share their passwords. So being able to kind of start those conversations when they're young and then build on them, adding more to it, starting those conversations around cyberbullying and what to do if that happens to them, what to do if somebody asks to meet them in person or is asking for inappropriate information. And then again, like as they get older into more of the middle school, high school years, talking more about sexting, talking about, that it's not okay to post things that are inappropriate either. Right? So yeah, it's kind of just starting with the age appropriate and getting, as they get older, making sure that we're addressing other issues that might come up. So hopefully the information that we cover today will help you to be able to have these conversations with the kids and the teens in your life. So I'm going to pass it over to Jess now, and she's going to be talking about inappropriate content.
So we're going to start by talking about inappropriate content. These are some of the inappropriate things that your child may be encountering online. The internet, it opens up a world of information and videos and images, and a lot of that sometimes you don't want them to see. On the internet, your kid might come across things that feature pornography, excessive violence, hate speech, or risky or illegal behaviors. For how to respond, when you see inappropriate content online, it may have negative effects on your kids. Some kids, especially the younger kids, they might feel guilty or ashamed. Sometimes children exposed to violent or sexual content, they might become desensitized to it, and it can affect their self-image and overall development. So just making yourself that safe space, and letting your kids know that they can always talk to you. The internet's a great tool. Schools are using it. They learn a lot from it, and it's kind of becoming a huge part of our society, especially now being in a pandemic when you can't be in person. So you don't really want to make it a scary place for them. And if your child does open up to you about inappropriate content that they've seen, just listen attentively and stay calm and reassure them that it's not their fault. And maybe even help them report it, so that anything that made them feel uncomfortable, so that that person isn't making other people feel uncomfortable too. And if you believe that your child may have received inappropriate content from a friend, or maybe has shared it with somebody else, you might want to talk to a teacher or a school counselor, just so that they're aware of what's going on. And we can't emphasize enough, the goal is to just have these regular and active conversations with your kids, so that that conversation is always open and ongoing, and not just reacting to those negative behaviors. So next, you should talk to your child about what they should do when they see inappropriate content. Things that they can do are turning off the screen, using the back button, telling a trusted adult, reporting it to the website or the app, and also reporting it to the cybertipline.org.
Yeah, I would say too with that one, I think about even with teens, that it's important to be that safe person that they can talk to about it, that even teens can have feelings of, that what I just saw made me feel really uncomfortable, or I'm confused about what I saw. So, being able to even be a safe person that they can talk to about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in addition to talking about talking to your children about what they do or what to do if they do see inappropriate content. You want to talk to your older children, especially, about not posting it themselves. Inappropriate information your child shouldn't be posting online include things that involve illegal or inappropriate behaviors, offensive language, threats of violence, underage drinking or drug use, and hate speech. Posting these kind of things online means that your child might damage their reputation at school or in the workplace or among friends. And I know kids sometimes don't think about that, but schools can, sometimes that stuff gets sent to schools. And then if it's breaking, you know, any of their policies, you could get in trouble for that. Being charged with a crime if you're breaking the law, and you could hurt your chances of getting into a good college or getting a scholarship or a job in the future if they know that this is something that's out there. Just a couple examples of inappropriate content that had been posted by teenagers online and how it affected them negatively. 2 high school students in Massachusetts were suspended after posting homecoming picture of them holding replica guns. Even though the guns were not real, school officials considered the photos to pose a significant disruption to the school. So they were in trouble for that because it went against their school and their code of conduct that they kind of have there. Another example, a Minnesota teen posted a comment online claiming to have kissed one of his teachers. And he did later on say that it was a joke and that everything was untrue, but he was suspended for violating the school's code of conduct, and he had to later transfer schools. So as a parent, what can you do? First, you know, connect with your kids, set some ground rules. Establish, you know, clear guidelines on what types of sites they can visit, apps they can download, and when and where they can have their electronics. I know some parents will say like, oh, they can only use their electronics and if they're in the living room, so that we can kind of see what they're doing and not being like in their room with the door shut, so you kind of know what they're doing. Researching before you buy. It's important to learn about the device's capabilities before you buy it. You know, and asking the questions like, will it allow unknown people to communicate with my kid? Will this allow children to make unchecked purchases? How much parental control am I going to be able to set on this device? And going beyond safeguards, we all know that installing monitoring software might be a good idea, but it doesn't always guarantee your child is going to be safe online. So make sure, again, keeping up with those active conversations and just paying attention to what your kids are doing online. And reporting. If your kids are dealing with cyberbullies or potential online enticement, report it to the website, cell phone provider, law enforcement, or www.cybertipline.org. And you're also going to want to learn about what your kids are doing. Knowing the different platforms that they're using. Online enticement happens across all platforms. So just be aware of the sites, games, and apps your children are frequently on and ask them to show you how they use it. That way you can learn how it works and all the different parts of it, and maybe even download it yourself and test it out and just see, oh, I don't like how it can do this, but I do see that this part is safer because I can set that control on there. Being proactive. Teaching your kids to spot common tricks used by online offenders. The most common tactics used to entice a child online, according to the NCMEC Cyber Tip Line reports, were things like engaging child in sexual conversation or role playing, and using that as a grooming method. Directly asking the child for sexually explicit images of themselves or offering to mutually exchange images. Developing a rapport with the child through compliments and other supportive behaviors, such as liking their online posts, sending unprompted sexually explicit images of themselves, pretending to be younger than what they really were, and offering incentives for explicit content. And learning to spot the red flags. A child who is experiencing online enticement, they might start spending more time online. They might get upset if they can't access their device or if they're not allowed to be on it. They might be taking extra steps to conceal what they're doing online, and they might start receiving gifts from people that you don't know. And lastly, you're really going to want to engage with your children on what they're doing online. Talk about it. Your kids might not want to tell you everything, but ask it anyway. Regular conversations about safety can go a long way in increasing trust and communication. Getting involved with the games and apps that they're using, challenge them to a duel. If you have kids that like to play online games, ask if you can play too. It's a great way to get that conversation started. And when you respect their interests, they're going to be more likely to respect the rules that you're putting in place. And lastly, don't pull the plug. Taking away internet access because they may have made a mistake online doesn't solve the problem. Talk to them about protecting themselves and respecting others online.
All right, thank you. Just thought I would pause here for a second to see if anyone has questions so far. Kind of thinking about handling when a child or a teen comes across inappropriate content. Anything there? Okay, I'll keep going, but you're welcome to at any point if you want to add something to the chat, any questions you have as we're going through, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask, that's okay too. So next, I was going to be talking about online privacy and the importance of talking to our kids about what you feel like is okay for them to share and what you feel like is not okay for them to share. So maybe having a conversation with them about like sharing pictures of friends and family, like if those friends and family have given your child permission, is it okay for them to post that online? So I think about, maybe a teen on Instagram, is that okay for them to go ahead and post that? Are you okay with that? For the most part, that's a pretty harmless thing, especially if you're thinking about the privacy settings that they have on their account. If they only have it set up so that people they actually know, their friends are seeing that, overall, that's a pretty harmless thing to do. Another one that you might consider is thinking about online gaming. And, if you're okay with your child playing a game where they're interacting with other people that they don't know. So these are just kind of strangers that are also playing with the game with them. Are you okay with that? And then what are you okay with them sharing while they're in that game? Because a lot of times there are chat features where they're either talking or they're typing things. So for instance, maybe you feel like it's safe for them to just be having casual conversations about the game, because then, those strangers aren't really talking to them about other things or, asking about personal information. They're just kind of talking about the game. So again, kind of thinking about what are your values, what are your expectations for what you feel like is safe versus something that you really would rather your child not be sharing when they go online. Definitely when it comes to personal information, we want to be really careful and emphasize to our kids and teens that they check with us before sharing this information, just trying to help them understand that as their like parent or guardian, we can help them figure out when it would be a safe thing to share and when it might not be safe to share. So things like, passwords, our address, our location. So being aware of when we might be using an app where the location setting is on, or if something is asking for like where we are at that time, phone numbers, email addresses. And with passwords, we really emphasize to kids and teens that they're not even sharing their passwords with their friends. And for teens, we also talk about not sharing passwords with the person that they're dating. So even if they really trust this person and they think, hey, they're not going to share my password with anyone, or they're not going to do anything harmful with it, it just really is opening themselves up to that chance of risk that friend or that dating partner, they might be mad at us, or we might break up with them. And then now they have access to our accounts and they can go in and change the password, and now we can't get in, or they can pretend to be us and say hurtful things about other people. And then people think that we said it. So we really emphasize to young people that, you have rights to digital safety and privacy, and you don't have to share passwords. In fact, we don't recommend sharing passwords. even with friends or dating partners. And also for thinking about personal information, we talk to students about not sharing personal information about other people in our lives. So not wanting to share, the phone numbers or locations of our friends or of our family, that we really want to be respectful of that person's right to privacy and kind of their digital boundaries for how they want to be treated online. What sort of information they want out there about them, they should be able to decide that. So, sharing personal information online does put kids and teens at risk. Some of the things that could happen if they are putting a lot of information about themselves online is, for one, identity theft. Especially people that like identity thieves, they target young people because we might not even notice that this happened until our child is older and is like applying for a credit card, and all of a sudden we see like a credit score that we're like, what happened, right? Or online scams. People might be targeting kids with like the promise of winning, that they won a contest or they got some kind of prize. So promising prizes or money as a way to trick kids to giving out personal information. It also opens up, if kids are sharing like passwords and account details, that their computers could be hacked. So, files could be stolen, even information that you have on your home computer, that might be hacked, and that some random internet person gets that information. And then definitely concerns about online enticement and sextortion. So, these are words that are really looking at when someone online is grooming a child for sexual content or to meet in person. And with sextortion, that's specifically talking about where the person is like blackmailing the child or coercing them to get these sexual images or to get just more from them. So like maybe they get a little bit from the child, and then now they blackmail them of, oh, if you don't give me more, I'm going to share with other people what you just sent me. So sometimes when Hope House is in schools, students ask, well, is it okay for me to just lie about like who I am? And like, maybe I can make a fake name and say that I'm actually 18, and then maybe that person will leave me alone, or like, is that a safe thing to do? So we don't actually recommend that people lie about their age and their name. There's even like certain rules against that, like on Facebook. For instance, their terms of service say that you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to create a fake name or age. And when young people are doing that, when they're saying, for instance, that they're like older than 13, all of a sudden certain privacy settings may no longer be in place. So, for instance, accounts of people under the age of 18 are usually not open to the public, but if they say that they are 18, now it will be. So there's going to be less security features in place if they're saying that they're actually older. So, here's kind of what you can do about it. Really try to establish those rules about what they can share and under what circumstances. So, for instance, again, like making it clear to a child they shouldn't enter their information in something that like pops up and tells them that they want a prize. To really learn about the reporting options of the website or the game that they're using, because they're all going to have kind of like their own tools to report issues. And if you're not sure how to do that, maybe just exploring with your child and trying to figure that out, or just Googling it. Sometimes just simply entering into Google the name of the app and like security features or how to report something can give you a lot of information. Checking the privacy settings. So helping your child set up their account and checking their privacy settings often to make sure that they're using kind of the most private and secure option. Just to give you a personal example from that, I know on Facebook, I had a situation where I wanted to make a post public so that people could share it. And I didn't realize that in doing that, then it sort of defaulted that any future post I made then also became public. So I had to specifically go back then and change it to say, no, I don't want now all my posts to be public. I want to make sure that only my friends can see my posts. So being able to go back and check things regularly is helpful. Helping kids create strong passwords, at least 8 characters or more. Sometimes just coming up with a silly sentence that is like random words put together that is easy to remember. And also going back and changing passwords on a regular basis is safer to do. And then also talking to them about their friends list. So, Hope House and NetSmarts, we really recommend that kids are only adding friends that they actually know in person. But, that you can talk to them about what you're okay with for the types of friends that they can add. So next, I'm going to pass it over to Jess, and she's going to dive more into the topic of sexting.
Yeah, sexting is a big issue that I don't even with adults and kids, they don't understand that once you send something out into the open, you have no control over it anymore. So in addition to being careful the kind of information you're posting, you really want to make sure that your kids are being careful about the images that they're sharing. In case you don't know what sexting is, it is sending nude or partially nude images to somebody else. And you can do that usually through cell phone, and also like Snapchat has been a big one because it typically deletes after a certain time, but once it's out there, you don't have control over what's happening to it anymore. And it's really hard to know for sure because the research that has been done it varies pretty widely, but recent studies suggest about 15% of teens have sexted and 27% of teens say that they have received a sext. So why are teens sexting? They might be doing it to try to be funny or, sharing it with their friends, or they might be trying to do it to impress the crush who might not have asked for the picture. They just send it on their own thinking, hey, maybe this person will like me better if this is what I do. They might be peer pressured into it or just experimenting with their relationships, sexual behavior, and boundaries. It can be a completely normal part of adolescent development that often includes risk-taking and boundary testing. However, one study found that teens who engaged in sexting are more likely to engage in other risky sexual behaviors, including things like unprotected sex. And this suggests that sexting is a pattern or part of a pattern of risky behaviors. We've also seen a lot of cases lately of people sending a sext to somebody like through Snapchat and then being blackmailed later, like saying, hey, you need to continue sending these to me, or I'm going to tell your family that you had started sending them. And it can really get you into a bigger or deeper hole than what you may have thought you were getting into just by sending what you thought was an not innocent, but like an innocent to a friend or a significant other or, a dating relationship that you're in. And again, like we've talked about, that person could get mad. It's kind of like the same with sharing password, and then they could decide that they want to send it out, or they could be like, oh, I got this text from my girlfriend. Here, you guys want to see it and share it with their friends or send it to them. And getting in the wrong hands from somebody, it can have a lot of backlash on teens. Yeah, there's a lot of consequences of sexting, like we talked about, blackmail and bullying. People can be bullied just because they sent it in general, like, hey, this person's sending these, and you're going to send some other ones to somebody else, or The school could get involved and it could become school discipline. There could be police involvement. It usually doesn't result in the teen being charged if it is teen involvement, but it may result in things like mandated education programs or community service. As far as schools go, it depends on what their policies are. It could result in suspension or getting expelled from school or losing a spot on a sports team. There's sometimes with the bullying that can get so bad that teens don't want to go to school anymore. It can lead to a whole range of other problems. And being a teen obviously is hard enough without having to deal with that going on at school as well. So here are a few things that you can do to address the sexting with your child. Make sure you talk to them about the consequences that could come from sexting. They may not realize that they could get in trouble with school or the police, and they may not realize that your image can stay online for a very long time. And telling them to never forward a sexting image that you may have received from somebody else. This could mean a lot more trouble at school and with the police. And it's also a major violation of trust and exposes the person in the picture to potential ridicule. Obviously, discussing healthy sexual relationships with your child, being open and honest with them. They should feel that you are a safe person that they can talk to about these sexual things, making sure that they know that, you know, what's healthy and what's not, and emphasizing that anyone who pressures them to send a sexual picture is not somebody that they can trust. Nobody should ever be pressuring you to send anything that you do not want to, or asking for those to. Talking about ways an image can spread online, and that even if your child thinks that their boyfriend or girlfriend would never forward the picture, they trust them, you know, they would never do something like that. There are other ways that that photo could spread, such as if the phone is lost or if somebody borrows it or is just looking through their pictures and sees it, or if it gets stolen, somebody now has access to all of those pictures that were on there. Reporting it to your child's school or the police if you know your child is being blackmailed, a photo is being passed around without consent, or a child is being bullied. And ignoring the situation will not help the child in the photo. And you can also make a report with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's Cyber Tip Line at cybertipline.org.
Yeah, Jess, when you were talking about how sometimes students can get bullied, I was just going to add to that too and say that when we go into the schools and talk to teens about sexting, they definitely have brought up situations where they knew somebody that had sent a sext and said, yeah, they definitely were being bullied and harassed after the fact, you know, that people were saying really hurtful things like, I can't believe you sent that. And that person was so humiliated. So one of the things we really try to emphasize with students is that if you are aware that someone has sent a sext, that it's not okay to like shame them for that and bully them and harass them, that we still want to treat that person with respect, you know, that they made a mistake, but it's not okay to be mean about it. So just like how we don't want to send a sext and we don't want to ask somebody for a sext, we also don't want to make them feel bad if they've already done that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So how do solicitations occur? The majority of sexual solicitations and aggressive solicitations occur among the older teens, and usually they're solicited by peers or young adults in a very, very casual way. And so they're not always as bothered by it. It doesn't make them as uncomfortable usually. Many of them simply just remove themselves from the situation by either blocking the person who is sending inappropriate requests to them or asking them to stop or leaving the site. Although most teens aren't bothered by sexual solicitations, there are some that can lead to really dangerous online relationships with predatory offenders. In these cases, the offenders begin to play on a child's vulnerabilities by offering them attention and affection. And this manipulative process is called grooming. The offenders like to entice children by exploiting their natural curiosities about sex, lowering the child's inhibitions by gradually introducing explicit images to them and child sex abuse images. Not all at once, just gradually throwing it in there, and they kind of get used to it from that person. Using his or her adult status to influence and control a child's behavior. Kids don't want to upset adults. They kind of follow what somebody older, I mean, it's kind of a place of power to them. It's an older person, they kind of are in charge. So they start following those things. And then offering gifts like cell phones or gift cards or tickets to do things, new clothes, things like that can kind of make a person or a kid feel like they're, important at this point, and feeling like, hey, they're giving me these. If I'm going to give them this, that's not that bad because I'm still getting all of this in return. They must really care about me. And they kind of change to that child's behavior. It's really important to note that sexual exploitation and abuse does not always involve grooming. All inappropriate or exploitive behavior needs to be addressed and reported. Some signs to look for that if you think your child, or some signs of grooming that may be occurring. If they start receiving gifts through the mail, like bus tickets, cell phones, webcams, gift cards, anything that, clothing, anything that could be important to them if they start receiving that kind of thing through the mail, getting a lot of calls from unknown numbers, or starting to reject time with their family or friends in favor of spending time online. Getting upset when they can't access their phone or computer or get online to talk to people. Or if when you walk into a room, you see them quickly, minimizing the screen or turning off the computer so you don't see what they were doing. And if you see any of these signs, please don't ignore them. Just start talking to your children. Check out what they're doing online, who they're talking to, and get help immediately if you suspect that something is wrong. All inappropriate, abusive, and exploitive behavior needs to be responded to and reported, whether or not signs of grooming are present. So what can you do? There are a lot of things that you can do to keep your child safe from predatory offenders. Start talking to your children about sex and relationships. And like we talked about earlier, starting young with age appropriate towards them, and then adding more as they change and as, their relationships start changing. And have an open door policy with them so they won't seek answers or inappropriate relationships online. And keeping in mind that many teens are flattered by attention from older people. Make it clear to them that a 22-year-old flirting with them is not appropriate, and it's not flattering, it's not okay. And this type of conversation can even start with young children, like I said, talking to them about what it is okay for people to talk to them online about and what's not okay. If your child is wanting to meet somebody online, or offline that they had met online in person, seeing if you're comfortable with it first. And if you are, establishing rules, where are they going to meet? An adult isn't it okay if an adult is with you in the room, or meeting in a public place where you're not going to be leaving, and getting that permission from parents and not just going on your own. Knowing who your child's online friends are, encouraging them not to accept friend requests from people they don't know and anyone they don't already know. Ask questions about the people in their friends list, like, hey, how'd you meet this person? Or, oh, who is this? Where'd you meet this one? Or what do you guys talk about? What kind of things are they interested in? What kind of things, you know, do you guys game together? Do you talk about school? And keep in mind that offenders use the internet to target minors that they already know. And if someone your child knows contacts them online, they should check with you before responding. And teaching your children the warning signs, talking to them about grooming and ways people might try to manipulate them, starting that from a very young age, like when they start using the internet, you know, letting them know that these things are inappropriate and not okay. And if you see that happening, please let us know. And, you know, above all, calling the police if you suspect that your child is having one of those inappropriate conversations or relationships with somebody online. And you should also file a report with the website or app where they've had these conversations. So here's a quick example of a 15-year-old who made a report about about inappropriate behavior online, reminding your child that even if they're not bothered by the inappropriate content, they should still report it to help keep the internet safe for others who are using it, because they might be bothered by it and it might lead to something more inappropriate to happen. And remind them that the person sending them inappropriate messages or pictures might try to do the same to another child who is more vulnerable. You can also make any report to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's cyber tip line. All reports made to the NCMEC's cyber tip line are made available to law enforcement. Make a report if anyone sends your child photos or videos containing obscene content, anyone asks your child to send sexual images, anyone speaks to your child in a sexual manner, or if anyone asks your child to meet in person. And another contact for them is at www.cybertipline.org or 1-800-THE-LOST.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, when you were talking to us, it was making me think a lot too about how sometimes people kind of assume that when we're talking about online solicitation and grooming, they're kind of sometimes just thinking about girls, but this absolutely happens to boys too. And I can't remember if the 15-year-old, I guess it didn't say whether it was a teen boy or girl or not, but I know talking to boys, you know, so many of them play different games where they're interacting with people that they don't know. And they will say, yes, absolutely. I come across things that are sexual and inappropriate and people asking me questions. So please don't forget to also be having these conversations with the boys in your life. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is cyberbullying. And I just want to say, I realize that we're getting close to the end of the time. So if you do need to hop off, you know, we're totally okay with that. And we'll get you the webinar recording so you can watch the last piece if you don't get to hang around with us. So cyberbullying, you know, that is basically where somebody is using the internet to act like a bully. You know, they're being really hurtful. They might be using texting or something else online. So lots of different examples of what that could look like. You know, maybe they're just sending mean and hurtful texts or messages online. Maybe they are photoshopping or altering pictures to purposely embarrass somebody, or creating a fake profile to say hurtful things about someone. I know I've heard examples from schools where they were saying somebody was telling somebody else like they should go kill themselves or they should hurt themselves. You know, definitely not okay. Maybe somebody is spreading rumors online, spreading gossip, posting pictures to embarrass somebody. You know, that person didn't want that posted, sending threatening or harassing comments. And even for young kids who aren't, you know, on social media or maybe don't even have like their own cell phone, again, if they're playing online games or they are in virtual worlds, they can still come across inappropriate language while chatting with others. They might be taunted by other players, targeted by more experienced players, or ignored by other players where they're like purposely excluding them and not allowing that child to play. So cyberbullying and other forms of bullying are different. I mean, cyberbullying can really spread quickly and so many more people could see it. and it follows kids home. And what we mean by that is that, they go home from school and it's still there, right? That you can't get away from it. That when something is posted online, kids might try to go in and delete it. But, if somebody shared it here, posted it there, we really can't get it back. So all of this can really undermine a child's sense of security, where they don't feel safe at school because a lot of times they're being cyberbullied by a peer or a classmate. And then they don't feel safe at home because it's happening online. You may have heard of cases where a student was being cyberbullied and then ended up taking their own life. Although cyberbullying can be really devastating for victims, suicide as a result of cyberbullying is still extremely rare. There are usually other factors kind of at play, where the child was also being bullied or abused in other kinds of ways, or they were facing mental health issues like depression. So although it is rare, cyberbullying can still have really serious effects, where kids that are being targeted might start to feel depressed, might get anxiety, have academic problems. So it's really an issue that we want to take seriously. We don't want to be talking to our kids and say, oh, well, that's kids being kids. It's not that big of a deal. Just get over it. It can be really difficult for the child that's experiencing it. So kids and youth need to know that they are responsible for their behavior online, and the choices that they make about what to post and how to treat others can have a positive or negative consequence for themselves and others. So with cyberbullying, you're going to have some different players. You're going to have the person that's acting like the cyberbully, the victim or target, and then the bystanders. And, one child or teen might fall into at least one of these categories, and sometimes more. So we're going to be talking about what to do, for instance, if your child is being cyberbullied. So here are some signs, which, some of these signs are similar to the signs Jess was sharing related to grooming. So it's hard to know for sure whether or not these signs mean that the child is being cyberbullied, but it's an opportunity for you to notice and to bring it up with your child. So saying like, hey, I'm noticing that you seem really uneasy about this, or, when you're going online, can you talk to me about that? Right. So just kind of starting that conversation, opening that up, and, not ignoring the signs. And if they do say that, yes, this has happened to me, I'm being cyberbullied, the things that we can do to help is, first of all, like stay calm, don't kind of explode about it, but, still also take it seriously. And then to really support your child. So all those supportive messages like, thank you for telling me, that took a lot of courage. I'm so proud of you that you told me. I'm so glad you told. We're going to do what we can to figure this out. So really helping your child to realize that it's not their fault and that they're not alone. Seeing if together, working with the child, you can figure out how to address the issue. Trying to save the evidence. So are you able to take screenshots on the phone? Are you able to save messages on the game? And can they block the person that's treating them like a cyberbully? So there might be features on the website or the app or the game. A lot of times we are able to block people. Maybe you need to help your child set up a new account on that website or game, or help them get a new cell phone number, and then tell them to only give that information to friends that they trust. We might need to talk to the school, especially if the cyberbully is somebody that is a classmate. Schools are going to have policies on addressing bullying and cyberbullying. So teachers and administrators should be able to work with you on addressing it. And then reporting it to the website or the app where cyberbullying might be taking place. Again, that you can look at each of those individual websites and apps to find out how to do that. You might be able to report to a cell phone provider if it's happening via text. Maybe they could block certain numbers, or you can help block the number on the child's phone. And then if you feel like any laws have been broken, or if your child is being threatened, that would be something where you could contact law enforcement or make a report to cybertipline.com. So another situation that might come up is our child is the one that's acting like a cyberbully, and we might not hear about it until like we hear from the school or from another parent. But again, here are some signs that maybe our child is the one that is acting like a cyberbully. Again, if we're noticing this, we want to talk about it. We want to start that conversation, try to get involved and learn more about what's going on. And if we find out that, yes, our teen is doing this, we can try to do what we can to address it with the school and to prevent it from happening in the future as well. So trying to establish those expectations again for online behavior. So making sure that your child knows that, hey, this is really not acceptable. When you go online, you need to treat people with respect. Like you don't have to be friends with everybody, but I expect that you're respectful. Setting consequences for cyberbullying. So maybe that includes that you're going to supervise more of what they're doing online. Modeling good online behavior yourself, making sure that you're also being respectful of others when you go online. And then the other issue that comes up, a lot of times our child is not the victim and not the cyberbully, but they see it happening. They're the bystander. And a lot of bystanders are afraid to speak up because they're afraid that they're going to become the next target or they're going to be considered like a snitch. But again, you can talk to your child about your values of standing up for others, about helping them. Some schools use the term like being an upstander. So letting them know that you expect them to try to help out as they feel safe and comfortable to do so, especially if this is a friend of theirs that's acting like a cyberbully. Can your child talk to their friend about what they're doing is really not okay? That they could speak up and they could stand up for the victim, being a good friend to the victim, tell the cyberbully to stop doing that, refusing to just, even join into the cyberbullying. Or supporting the victim in private, so if it's someone they know, can they sit with them? Can they spend more time with them? Can they post supportive messages on their page? If they're playing with them on a game, can they spend more time with them in the game? Or help them to report the cyberbullying to adult at school or, to the gaming site. I personally am not like a gamer, but I know I've talked to some of them that said sometimes if you try to report something in a game related to cyberbullying, nothing happens. But if you get enough people doing it, so if there's other players that also see the cyberbullying and you all report it, it makes it much more likely that something will happen, like that player will get kicked off of the game or be blocked. So I also just wanted to mention tech options. I know this is really where people tend to have questions and want to know answers about like, what can I do in terms of the tech side of things? We really emphasize communicating with kids as a great tool for prevention and addressing these issues. But you might want to look into filtering and monitoring software to try to protect your child from seeing sexually explicit materials, and it could maybe even notify you if they're receiving inappropriate messages. But I would say that NetSmarts really doesn't endorse any particular kind of software. Something that you can do, we at Hope House really like the website commonsensemedia.org, and I can send you some more information and handouts from them. But they have a page under their parents guide where it talks about like parents guide to like monitoring, and I'm trying to think of what else exactly it's called, but they have some really good tips on different software to consider depending on what it is you're actually looking to do in terms of your child's privacy and filtering and monitoring. Maybe you can contact your cell phone provider to see about monitoring your child's cell phone. But again, with this, we really emphasize communication and not like doing it behind the child's back, not being sneaky about it, because then they're less likely to talk to you if you do end up having a problem that you need to talk to them about. So if they know ahead of time that like, yes, I'm monitoring you and this is why, that makes it a lot easier to address problems that may come up. Maybe research options for other mobile devices, laptops, handheld games, tablets. They might already have built-in monitoring options or software that you could purchase. Likewise, just kind of looking at individual apps that your child is using. Do they have options like turning off the chat feature or limiting who can see what your child is posting within the app? Kind of, again, exploring those built-in safety features for different programs and websites. They might already have like their own privacy and filtering services. Like Google, for instance, they have safe search, like safesearchkids.com, where there's that free safe search option. So each website or app has different privacy and filtering settings. So you can, kind of look into each one to get a better understanding. And again, that commonsensemedia.org, they have these parent guides for some of the specific games that your child might be playing, for the apps and websites that they might be using. So I'd really recommend looking into that to learn more about those. And NetSmarts also says that you can contact them with questions. But kind of remember, the most important thing is to communicate with our kids and teens regularly about what they're doing online, asking those questions and really emphasizing to them that you're here and, you want them to come to you if they're experiencing problems online. So again, NetSmarts is a really great resource you can check out to get more information, more help. They also have something specifically for younger kids at netsmartskids.org's kind of games and ebooks and activities. And as we mentioned, I've been mentioning Common Sense Media is a great one to check out. The National Sexual Violence Resource Center for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, their theme is building safer online spaces, or like we can build safe online spaces. And they've put out a lot of really great blog posts and information related to keeping kids and teens and adults safe online. So that would be another one that we would recommend. And lastly, if you're looking to learn more about grooming and protecting your child from sexual abuse, Darkness to Light, so d2l.org and stopitnow.org are two really excellent national organizations working to prevent child sexual abuse. So lots of good information on those websites as well. So that is what we have for you. I know that was a lot of information, and we are over time, but Jess and I are able to hang around for a couple minutes if people do have any questions that they wanted to ask.
Yes, and again, thank you all for joining us today. You're very welcome to stick around with any questions. And also remember that our education team and advocates are available for presentations. So if you'd like to schedule something, your own free training, don't hesitate to contact us here at Hope House. And again, everything will be emailed to you. And if you would click on the evaluation, we'd really appreciate it. And have a wonderful day and stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Oh, was there a question? All right, so I don't see any questions, but you're always welcome to contact us at Hope House if anything comes up. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.